give some more people time to arrive? You're muted. You're muted, Sarit.
Sorry, the hazard of Zoom. I'm waiting for Olga. So 1 second, she's joining and we can start.
Okay. I see still more people are joining. That's good.
Let me check with Olga what
So 1 hour more in Israel, and I'm dialing in from the Netherlands because I'm in Amsterdam. We also have amazing weather today, so because I'm always so jealous when I talk to my Israeli colleagues and clients about them being there, and I haven't been able to travel there for now more than a year and a half, and I'm suffering from it. But at least we have some good weather here in Amsterdam as well, and I can not look so white compared to all these Mediterranean people.
So we basically can start.
Hey, Olga.
Hi.
Mo,
Hi.
Hi, Monique.
you want to say a few words, or you want me to start?
Maybe you start.
לא שומעים אותך.
אני חושבת שאת תתחילי. פשוט תתחילי את. לא שומעים אותי?
סליחה, עוד פעם?
שרית, אני חושבת שאת פשוט יכולה להתחיל את הערב.
אז אני הזמנתי גם, קודם כל תודה שהצטרפתם ותודה שהזמנתם אותי, ותודה לך מור על באמת שנתת לנו את הפלטפורמה להציג את הדברים. אני רוצה להזמין את דוקטור אולגה גולדין, מנהלת מערך הספריות והמידע, לומר מספר מילים.
אוקיי, ערב טוב, ואני מאוד שמחה באמת ליוזמה הזאת, ואני רוצה להודות תודה לכל מי שבעצם גרם לכך שאנחנו היום נפגשים, ותודה רבה לשרית על כל היוזמות. אני חושבת שאחד מהצדדים החשובים מאוד של פעילות של מערך הספריות והמידע בבר אילן, ובכלל ספריות אקדמיות בעולם, זה קצת לפרוס את הכנפיים ולחצות את הגבולות ולהפוך למשהו הרבה מעבר לשירותים ומטלות המסורתיות של הספרייה. אנחנו היום לא רק מספקים תכנים שתומכים בתהליכי הוראה, למידה ומחקר, אנחנו עושים הרבה מעבר לזה, אנחנו מרימים פרויקטים בהרבה מאוד תחומים נוספים, שכמובן כל מה שאנחנו עושים זה אכן תומך הוראה, למידה ומחקר, אבל גם כל התחומים של דיגיטל. אברהמי, יש איזשהו קול, אני מבקשת להשתיק, אז כל הנושאים שקשורים לאופן סיינס, נושאים שקשורים למדעי הרוח הדיגיטליים, נושאים שקשורים לתמיכה, שרית, אפשר להשתיק, פשוט זה מאוד מפריע.
אני לא ההוסט.
יש כל פעם מישהו שכן לא משתיק את המיקרופון. כל מה שקשור לתמיכה בנתונים Research Data Management שהיום גם מתפתח בספריות האקדמיות, זה בהחלט מקדם את הסגלים האקדמיים שלנו ונותן לנו כלמידענים וספרנים באמת לתמוך ולתרום מהידע המקצועי ומיומנויות. אז אני באמת מאחלת לנו שיתוף פעולה פורה ושאנחנו נמשיך מההתחלה הזאת רק לצמוח, ושכל הפרויקט שעכשיו אנחנו באמת עומדים בהתחלה שלו הוא יביא תועלת רבה, ושאנחנו נמשיך ביחד לעשות ולהפיק מאחד ועוד אחד שיהיה הרבה מעבר לשתיים. אז בהצלחה רבה. And Monique, I just want to say several sentences in English. I mentioned that we in our libraries and information system at Bar-Ilan University are participating in all the projects of not traditional library services like open science and digital humanities and research data management and so on. And we are very happy for this project also. And I also thanked Sarit and more and all our participants, and I wish this project good luck, and I hope it will be very fruitful and efficient for all of us. So thank you, and I hope that we will have a very interesting event.
תודה רבה, אולגה. Monique, Bennett, I'm going to say a few words in Hebrew and then we can switch into English. אז ערב טוב, עוד לא הצגתי את עצמי. אני שרית סמבול-סס, אני ראש תחום ניהול תהליכים מקצועיים ופרויקטים במערך הספריות. כחלק מהאחריות שלי זה בעצם גם נושא הרכש, אבל גם נושא של ניהול אוספים. והמטרה שלנו ובכלל של ספריות אקדמיות בשנים האחרונות, זה לפתח אוספים גם בצורה אקטיבית, לא רק פסיבית, לא רק לחכות לאנשים שיפנו אלינו ויגידו לנו מה אנחנו רוצים, אלא בעצם לפנות לתוך הקהילה של המשתמשים שלנו, ולנסות להציג להם דברים חדשים שהגיעו לשוק, פרויקטים שאנחנו חושבים שיכולים לעניין וכו' וכו'. עכשיו, מסגרת הערב הזה, ובגלל זה גם ביקשתי בעצם את ההזדמנות לדבר ולהציג, לאחרונה עלה הנושא של ארכיונים דיגיטליים. אני חושבת שמוניק ובנט ידברו על זה גם בהרחבה, שהם יציגו את הארכיונים שלהם, אבל בעצם הרעיון הוא שמדובר בארכיונים שמציגים חומרים ראשוניים, שמאפשרים גישה לחומרים ראשוניים, מסמכים, תמונות, סרטונים, באמת מגוון פוסטרים, באמת מגוון מחר של חומרים, הם מאפשרים בעצם גם אפשרויות חיפוש מתקדמות, וגם מאפשרים בעצם לחוקר לשבת באוניברסיטה או בכל מקום בעולם, ולקבל גישה מיידית לחומרים האלה. הנושא הראשון שחשבנו עליו באמת בהקשר הזה, זה הנושא של השואה, ולכן בעצם ביקשנו ממוניק ובנט שהצטרפו אלינו הערב, כדי שיציגו לנו את החומרים שיש לחברה שלהם לתת. גל הוא אחד מהמולים החשובים בעולם בתחום של פיתוח של ארכיונים דיגיטליים, אני חושבת שהם הגדולים מכולם, ויש להם לא מעט חומרים שנוגעים גם לשואה, גם לארץ ישראל, גם ליהדות, גם למזרח תיכון וכו'. ואני באמת ביקשתי מהם שהתמקדו הערב הזה בנושא של ארכיונים דיגיטליים בתחום השואה. כמו שאמרתי, אנחנו בסוף הערב או אפילו ביום ראשון, אני אשלח בעצם סוג של שאלון אליכם, ואני אשאל אתכם מה דעתכם על הארכיונים שהוצגו, ואני אבקש באמת את חוות דעתכם כדי שנדע מבחינת גם האם זה דברים שמעניינים אתכם מצד אחד, ובית מה סדר עדיפויות, מכיוון שכמובן יש לנו מגבלות תקציביות, אז אנחנו לא נוכל להיכנס להכל בבת אחת, אבל שיהיה לנו בעצם סדר גודל של מה רצוי, מה לא רצוי, מה עדיף ומה לא עדיף. אז זה באמת בגדול. תודה שוב באמת על הנוכחות ועל השיתוף הפעולה. And now I'm going to switch to English. Monique Bennett, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And of course the products that you want to show the participants.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sarit. So, shalom. Ma shlomech. And toda rabba for having us here today. I already requested some Hebrew language training at my company. So let's see if I come back to Israel that I can actually say more than these three lines that I learned from Sarit. So today we were given the opportunity to talk to you. I brought my colleague, Bennett Graff. I don't know if you can see him in my view. He's under me, like in the picture under me. He is a digital archive publisher with a broad experience in 20th century American studies, public health, environment, religious studies, and Bennett also does law and legal history. And today he's here to support me with his knowledge on content of the Holocaust archives. My name is Monique Schutterop. I always urge people not to say my last name because it will always sound like Monique shut her up, and I had that too many times already. So I'm from the Netherlands. I've been representing GIL for 11 years in the Scandics, in Benelux. I'm from the Netherlands. And since the last 7 years, I've been covering Israel. I've worked with Sarit on many different locations in many different, Sarit in many different roles. So we go way back, and I've been visiting Israel quite often. That's why I'm complaining that I can't go now. I've been to Bar-Ilan a couple of times. We spoke during organized sessions with Olga and Sarit about the GIL digital archives, and my role is basically to meet with librarians and academics to talk about what are their needs, what do they find important in their research and teaching, what would they like to see digitized, all these things to basically support the library in their choices of what to buy, you know. And I'm very happy to be here today to meet all of you and to get an opportunity to tell some more about GIL. I'm gonna turn on this if I can. I'm gonna share my screen because I want to show you a couple of things. Share. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I don't know if you see this, but I'm going to put you here. So yeah, so that's it. So the agenda is going to be basically GIL, who we are and what we do. Then I will hand it over to Bennett, and he will tell you all about the Holocaust Studies archives that we have. And then there is a space for questions and hopefully maybe some discussion. I would urge everyone to, if they have questions, either save them for the end because we like to talk to you directly, or if you don't like to talk directly, then you can put them in the comment box, and then either me, Bennett, or Sarit will pick them up at the end of our little presentation. So let me tell you something first about GIL a little bit, in case not everyone maybe knows what GIL is and what we do. So GIL is a Cengage company, and Cengage is an educational publishing company that was founded in the US in 1954. Since the last 20 years, we've been also publishing digital, and we've been collaborating with many libraries all over the world to digitize content. We are really famous for publishing materials that are very rare, difficult to handle, materials that maybe are damaged, because we also restore materials. And we operate in public, in governmental, in school markets, and in the academic markets. So when we talk about materials, there are like many different sorts of materials that we digitize. So from the more famous titles like newspapers, we have digitized many different newspapers. Some of you will definitely know The Economist, The Times, The Financial Times, The Daily Mail, all these big newspaper titles, but we also have digitized many more especially curated content. For example, the 19th century collections online, like the Corvi collection, or 18th century collection online, books from the British Library, every printed book from every printed book in the 18th century English titled books. So I'm going to show you a little bit so you have a more visual on the stuff we do, basically. But in short, yeah, Gil provides libraries with original curated contents. Let me take you online for a second so you can see. Where are we? Here, Doc. Can you still see this? Wait, new share.
Yes.
Yeah. Wait, this one.
We see your presentation. Now we see the slide. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just want to show this so you know where to look when you want to learn more about Gil. So I will take you to an overview of our primary sources just to have an idea. So you can see all the different types of materials. This is American amateur newspapers. We have archives of sexuality and gender. We also have Brazilian and Portuguese history and culture. We do things like the Chatham House archives. Here are some examples of the newspapers. Also China and the Modern World. Oh, this is a famous one, early Arabic printed books from the British Library. The Economist, Financial Times, Independent, Illustrated London News. These are all newspapers. Listener. I'm very curious. Well, I'll ask in the end. Maybe you can lift your hand then, like how many people actually know about Gil. We do a collaboration with the National Geographic. Yeah, just many archives. So we also do databases, so on literature and all these kind of stuff. But in a nutshell, this is what Gil does. So now I'm going to hand it over to Bennett, and he will tell you a little bit more about the specific subjects that you are interested in. So I'll stop with sharing, and yeah, that's it. Bennett, take it from here.
Thank you, Monique. First, I assume everyone can hear me clearly. Yes, Sarit?
Yes.
Yep. Olga, good. Nod heads. Thank you.
Yes.
Very good.
Bennett is in the US, so it's like we're on completely different timetables as well.
Yeah, so I'm speaking to you from New Haven, Connecticut, the home of Yale University. I am a product developer. I build these products. That means, in brief, that I go to libraries and archives, most often in the United States, but sometimes other parts of the world. And I study the materials enough to get a sense of, is there enough scholarly interest? And is this material accessible enough to be useful to scholars and students? And I've done this for probably 25, 30 years. I've also done book publishing. And just to make clear that I know a little bit of the world you come from, I also have a doctorate. So I have also been, an instructor, a college instructor, and I am even published in my field of specialty, which is American literature. Okay, now I'm going to show you, I'm going to share the screen if that's permitted. And I'm going to show you some of the collections that we have that are relevant to the work that you do. I've called this Holocaust Studies and Related Collections because there are some collections that are more focused on matters related to the Holocaust and others that are more tangentially related. They might be collections on materials related to events prior to the Holocaust. They may be materials related to events that follow in the wake of the Holocaust. So I wanted to pull together everything that I thought would be relevant enough for this to kind of fall within this category of this presentation. So the place I'm going to start is something called Archives Unbound, and it is a collection of our for lack of a better term, are microarchives. These archives, this description here describes them. The entire collection of archives is around 360 different microarchives, 13 million pages, probably more now since this was written. And these collections range anywhere from 1,200 to 200,000 pages per individual archive. That's what makes a small archive for us. So as you can imagine, over 200,000 pages is a regular archive to us. These are the archive, within these 367 collections, I pulled out the ones that are relevant in some manner to Holocaust studies. I don't want to take up too much time with getting into real detail on each of these. In some ways, some of you would understand this material far better than I ever would. What I've indicated here is the title of the project, the number of items as we count them. It could be files, it could be book titles, the number of pages, and then the source, where it comes from. So some of this is fairly, oh, and it's not in a particular order. These little images are badges from when you visit the archive, and we'll take a look at that towards the end. So we have correspondence from German concentration camps and prisons that were gathered by an individual who then basically donated all of it to McMaster University. The German anti-Semitic propaganda are actually book titles. It was a collection at the Library of Congress. Holocaust and the concentration camp trials. This is actually a sub-collection. There is actually a great deal more material on the various war crimes trials that occurred. These exist at the National Archives. Many of them are on microfilm. A good portion of this, some of you already know, is available open access from certain venues. For example, Harvard posted its Nuremberg trial collection materials because they had the papers of the prosecutors who were Harvard graduates. Some other collections. This one is the Intergovernmental Committee on Refugees. And that is a collection also at the National Archives. Each of these has its own history, as you can imagine. This is a very small collection at 1,235 pages, but the David Diamant collection on Jewish underground resistance is a fascinating small collection of material collected by Jewish resistance fighters in particular. This last collection, Nuremberg Laws and Nazi Annulment of German Jewish Nationality, is, believe it or not, it's actually boxes of index cards of the actual citizens who had their citizenships revoked. And that was collected at the US National Archives. As you can already guess, many of the US National Archives collections were the captured war documents at the end of the war, which were then microfilmed by the United States. And then the microfilm was placed within the US and the original documents were returned to Germany. Testaments to the Holocaust is one of our larger collections. That's from the Wiener Library, which was devoted to a fascinating library because it actually, the person who started it actually started collecting his materials on anti-Jewish sentiment immediately after World War I. So the Wiener Library is actually fascinating because it actually captures very well the portrait of anti-Jewish activity, especially in Germany, prior to the war. It's one of the best collections for that kind of material. The British Mandate in Palestine. So as I indicated, there are some collections that are related in the wake of the Holocaust. We have two collections related to the British Mandate in Palestine. And these are records from the US Consulate at Jerusalem, which means the US State Department collected these records. Sorry, I gotta go back one. Last one on this page is the Jewish Question records from the Berlin Document Center. The Berlin Document Center is, of course, those captured war records. And this is a collection of materials on the question as, quote unquote, debated within the Nazi regime. Palestine and Israel, records of the US Department of State. This is 1945 to 1959. I should point out, I'm going to go back a slide. The one British mandate in Palestine is pre-1945. It actually covers 1922 to 1945. There is a collection here in the middle, US relations with the Vatican and the Holocaust. This is State Department stuff, as there was negotiations or conversations between the State Department and Pope Pius XII and his entourage. And this is an unusual collection, Nazi bank and financial institutions, the US military government investigation. This was a set of files created by the National Archives tracking Nazi financial activity. It's related to a collection that actually shows up a little later that I will show you, and will explain its importance. I thought I'd bring this collection into the mix because I thought it was worth at least noting. We actually do have the paper, a whole bunch of materials related to the Dreyfus affair. Although it's early, it's kind of, it kind of fits into the broader theme of events, critical events in kind of the history, sadly, of anti-Semitism. Here we have Nazism in Poland. This is the diary of the Governor General, Hans Frank. This is the Nazi installed Governor General. And again, captured material by the US government. And then a different collection, one that I will elaborate more on, post-war Europe, refugees, exile, and resettlement. These are records from the UK National Archives and the Wiener Library related to exiles. There is to refugees immediately after the war. A large component of this collection is devoted to the Jewish refugee situation, which I will discuss a little further in a minute for a reason. I mentioned earlier Nazi banks. This collection, Safe Haven Reports on Nazi Looting of Occupied Countries. These two are connected. Essentially, they are both records in a sense of the US effort to keep the Nazi regime from smuggling out its money and gold and stolen objects to neutral countries, in particular Switzerland, which was a rather vexed negotiation. And the last collection here, Economy and War in the Third Reich, is also related to that as well. So these are micro archives. These are the ones that we have that are most relevant, I would say, in some sense, to Holocaust studies. There is material, some of them are more directly focused on the issue. Some of them you kind of have to hunt around to find material that may speak more closely to whatever your area of research is. I'm going to talk about one of the large collections. This is that large collection. It's called Refugees, Relief, and Resettlement, Forced Migration in World War II. This is a collection that I assembled about a year and a half ago. Compared to the others, this one is 600,000 pages. So this collection is as large as all of the others I just showed you put together. This collection is not specifically on Jewish refugeeism, but Jewish refugeeism is a very, very large part of it. This collection focuses on the full global refugee situation. There were 60 million approximately displaced persons before, during, and shortly after the war. Most were repatriated, but some were not. And among those who had no place to go were Jewish refugees, which is why, while the entire collection is certainly not about Jewish refugees, there is a fairly strong representation of material related to Jewish refugeeism in this collection. More specifically, if you look in the upper left, the archives of the Central British Fund for World Jewish Relief, that is a collection actually from World Jewish Relief, which is a functioning organization in the UK. It is similar, although much, much smaller than the JDC in terms of the work that it does. And they were very happy to actually have their historical records go online. But even among these other records, which come from the National Archives in the UK and the US National Archives and the British Library, there are many materials related to kind of the Jewish refugee situation after the war. I'm going to show you a few documents very quickly within this PowerPoint because I actually had them ready to go when I've done this presentation before in this project specifically. This is the collection as I already described it, just kind of a quick summary. But this is an example of such a document. This is a map that was created for the Evian conference, actually. And this map appears in the collection explaining the quote unquote estimated distribution of Jewish refugees from Germany from April 35 to March 38. And it's a remarkable visual. Here is a letter. I gave you kind of small themes. The themes do focus more on refugeeism than the Holocaust specifically, but it's kind of material I had ready to go and present. Jewish refugees during the war. This is kind of an illustration of a government and an NGO collaboration. This letter, as you can see, is from the JDC, the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee. And actually, here is during the war and after the war, refugeeism was a major problem. Here we have one of Jewish refugees in the Italian occupied zone in France. I'm just kind of breaking out. I'm enlarging the image so you can see what's being written here. Here's an interesting document. I actually read a good deal of this. This is Operation Oasis. And this is all about how the British were handling the SS Exodus, which, as you know, was not allowed to kind of land. And Jews who were actually fleeing for Palestine were basically forced back into Europe, and and had to stay there in DP camps. And there's a whole file in the National Archives on this quote unquote operation. One of the more interesting things is some of the backroom negotiations. Again, this is more kind of Israel founding focused than anything. But this is a letter. This is actually a report that someone was writing, and the Mr. B here is Bernard Baruch, who is trying to negotiate, homeland options with various parties. And then this actually came from the World Jewish Relief. This is actually one of the most, this is actually one of the saddest documents I encountered. These are firsthand accounts from children. You might notice that we actually redacted some of the information in these. We do actually try to protect privacy where possible. So that's what the black bar is. That is not in the original document. We put that in. And these are actually snippets that the Central British Fund for World Jewish Relief would use at the time for making its case for saving Jews, which was their primary goal. And these are some of the pieces that they used to try and illustrate how terrible things were. In addition, after the war was over, World Jewish Relief worked very hard to find homes for Jewish refugees. And they actually reached out to entities across the world to do that. That's not represented here. I have that elsewhere, but this is the kind of thing these are the kinds of documents that you might find in this collection, but you might find in any of the collections I presented. My presentation is going to end here, so I'm actually going to stop the share for a moment, if that's okay. And then I guess one question is if people would like to kind of see the platform, see the material being used in live. So I'm looking for Olga or someone to tell me if we should kind of look at it, or should we take some questions first?
I think it will be very useful to see the platform also before the questions.
Okay. Monique, do you want me to do this? Or do you want to do this?
No, please, you do it. I'm sure you're better at it than me.
No guarantees of anything. Okay. Let me just get out of this. If if I can. Thank you. Okay. And
of course, we can always like set up a trial if that's if people want that. You can get in touch with Sarit or Olga, and they can get in touch with me about these kind of things.
Yes. So I assume everyone can see the screen. Monique, just confirm for me. You can see the live screen. Yes,
I am there.
Very good. Okay. So this is the Archives Unbound project. Because there's so many collections, we group them into categories. This is the Holocaust Studies category. I should be clear, all the collections I showed you are not even under this category. This is 10 of them, but there's actually, I showed you more than that. I showed you actually about 17 possible things. When going into these materials, the platform works like anything else. Let me see if I can utilize something. I'm going to work with this for the moment, and I'll tell you why. So some of these materials are, so for example, the German anti-Semitic propaganda is almost all in German, and I have no German from which to work. So, I mean, while it's interesting to look at the materials, for example, at least this much I can show you. We're in the main search, and I'm just gonna, for now, I just want you, there's a list of titles actually right here. They did a very abbreviated version of them. If you wanted to see all of the titles and just start actually getting into the titles, you would see the list here. I could actually sort these by, let's say from oldest. So we have something as old as 1909, and then it will move through time until the 1940s. If we dive into it, what you're actually seeing in the thumbnail here is actually the catalog card that is at the front end of it. I have no idea at the moment what I'm looking at, but we will discover. So this is a 231 page or image document done in the appearing in the Fraktur. I'm going to shrink this a little bit so you can kind of see more of the, I mean, any of you might know better than I do what we're looking at, if you can read it. But this is the kind of material. And actually one of the things that I could do if I knew German is one thing I can do is I can actually see the, Fraktur is actually quite difficult to capture. So this is our best efforts at the OCR, but we do actually show the characters as we capture them. And I can search within them. I can actually search not only across all of these documents, but I could just search for a particular term within this document. I also can view the full citation here, obviously, and then I could do the usual standard functions, which is if I needed to cite it, here is the citation in various formats available to us. Here are the various softwares that you can send it to. If I needed to send the document, I can email a link to it. I can download pages of this. There are limitations. I believe we do 200, but I can download the documents, and I should add as a warning that the document downloaded is very large because we do provide you with the high resolution image of the document. So a very, very high quality image, which also means a very large file. And of course you can print it. And this is this is the permanent link if you needed to kind of just save a link to get access right to the document. If I go back to the Archives Unbound and go into something else that I can actually search on more effectively, I'm gonna, let me look in here at the Intergovernmental Committee. So as usual for each of these, there's kind of a short description of there's an overview of what is in the collection, and also some background about the collection, as well as some of the information already provided, source, extent. Then I can search within this. So the Intergovernmental Committee was, of course, a number of governments, national governments, in talking about this particular topic. I actually don't have a term ready to use. I wonder if anyone has one that they would like to suggest, preferably in English. Anyone want to make a contribution?
Maybe the name of some country, European country.
Well, let's take a look.
England, United Kingdom, France, something.
France, yeah.
Let's do France first.
Okay.
Whoops. Oh, they asked me to sign in first. This part is easy. Just need to sign in, and then it's in. My apologies. There we go.
No, it's actually good so that people can see how they can sign in. It's also a way to show that you can store your documents in your own Google or Microsoft account.
So we have France. Normally what will rise to the top is if the name of the document is actually that, is this term that you've searched on. Otherwise, if you have a different document, so IGC allotment of funds to the JDC. Let's see if the keyword preview works. Yep, there it is. There's a keyword preview. If I go into the document, I actually will see here, every one of these is the term that I was searching for. So I can go right to the page. I can actually just go from page to page looking for that term. There it is. It is highlighted on the page every time. If I wanted to actually capture the content, I could then do this, and then I could just kind of copy and paste. It does only show one page at a time. The copy you see is the page you're visiting. If I just try to take that off, you can just you could also work with the material a little bit. This is very, very simple black and white, but sometimes you see materials that have the imagery is a little, it could be muddy, it could be difficult to see, and this allows you to brighten it or to change the contrast.
Oh, Miriam, can you mute your, yes, thank you.
Yeah, and do other kind of variations to it, to the material. So this is the kind of, now, within these, within this document, let's see, allotment of funds to JDC, you might be actually searching along and you might see something of interest where you need to, let's see. Well, look, so we have contributions from Romania and Hungary, it looks like as well. So let me actually.
Bennett, what is the quality of OCR for such kind of typewriting materials?
Say that, sorry, repeat the question for me, please.
I asked what is OCR quality for such kind of typewriting materials or,
yes.
or handwriting?
Yeah. So so as you can imagine, if the handwriting, if the document is relatively clear and easy to read, the OCR will generally be pretty good. So now it gets more complicated if, for example, the letters begin to break apart, or if the document you're looking at is very, very dark and you don't have enough contrast between the letters. So for typewritten material, generally are generally pretty good, as you can see here. We'll just look at this document. So some things it had difficulty with, you could see there's some junk. For example, this was supposed to be following, and they got, and so so it will be uneven,
Okay.
and you do have to.
My question is, because I suppose that the search is based on OCR version of this.
Correct.
So
yes.
Maybe there are some pages in this specific document which maybe also consist the search term, okay? But
Yep.
we cannot see these pages and the results.
Correct.
Because the OCR was not
Is not good enough. Yes.
Okay.
However, there are ways of doing things where you can say allow variations, which is called fuzzy searching. So in other words, it will look for more things. Maybe you got some of the letters. So for example, whoops, didn't want to do that. I actually did that wrong. Let me just see if it. Okay. So this asterisk means look for, say, HUNG and any letters that follow after it. This is called a wildcard operator. So
familiar from online search university class.
Right, exactly. So
Miriam Farber was my teacher for online searching. Miriam, I'm so glad to see you.
So it is true we don't have 100% accuracy, but then again, when you're dealing with material that looks like this, it just can't be done. If you do it, you're actually having to pay a cost that the project would never actually occur. I mean, it might occur if you were under a grant, but if we did 100% accuracy, it would just be too expensive to even put out there at all. So there is a certain amount of risk, and search is never a total substitute for actually digging into the materials. But I will say that it's generally pretty good. In addition, we do also have, I don't have anything to demonstrate here, it's in other projects, we actually do have handwriting technology as well. And that actually has provided pretty good results as well. So we actually have technology that allows us to read handwriting and produce pretty good results. As a separate issue, what you're not going to find is, our OCR is Roman character based. So you know what that means. It means you cannot really search words in Hebrew or Yiddish. You probably couldn't even search really for words in Russian. We do have some projects, such as our early Arabic books, that do work with non-Roman alphabets, but that's the exception, not the rule. Most of our projects are Roman alphabet based. So if we encountered probably a Hebrew language document, it's unlikely that there would be any OCR associated with it. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I don't know if it's worth kind of diving into other things related to this, but I think we should maybe take questions and thoughts, and I'll stop the share.
Cool, thanks, Bennett. So I put my email address there in the chat for everyone, in case you want to write me something directly, not through Sarit. Then you can, of course. And yeah, and I'll be here. And if there's questions, tell me now or tell us later.
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's very impressive. In a lot of ways, sort of overlaps with the Washington type of materials from the National Archives, from the Joint. A content question, how much do you really have from the Berlin Documentation Center? Historically, what happened was it was off limits to researchers for all sorts of political reasons. Then it was transferred in the end, without the whole story, to the Bundesarchiv in the former East Berlin. Basically, all those files are off limits. It was all eaten up, camouflaged. So the question is, in your estimation, how much of the meaty, M-E-A-T-Y material do you have on files of Nazi criminals? Because you know the breadth of it. They're the files, tens of thousands of files, okay? And that's that in itself is a very valuable thing. A minor question, I'm a historian on the Sfaradim and the Mizrahim in 18 countries, basically. In North Africa, Far East, the Balkans, et cetera, et cetera. But what you, Monique talked about a Portuguese collection, so I'd like to hear a little bit about that. But have there been any efforts to get Balkan materials? Because usually the buck stops there. Okay, so if the State Department has things, then that's nice. Or it was trendy to find things in Russia, so that's how the Washington Holocaust Museum got things. But the question is there? It's not a matter of even funding. Is there a mandate or interest to really pursue the width and the breadth of the Holocaust in all sorts of regions in the Balkans and in Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe?
Shall I share my screen for a second? Because while you were asking about content, I went. Gareth said that the archives we looked at, they are like archives that are found in Archives Unbound. This is like the product. Within Archives Unbound, we have at the moment little over 300 different archives. This is a list. I will share it with Sarit and she can share it with you. And I just did like a really fast search on Balkan. So for example, this archive is called Turkey, Greece, and the Balkan States, Records of the US State Department. If I do a search for, because the thing is, I don't know all the titles by heart inside Archives Unbound because it's huge. And I think every year between 6 and 10 new titles are being produced. And the way we choose materials is by listening to academics like yourself that give ideas.
My educated guess is that those type of files have been tapped. Okay. The question is, what file, like the Mormons microfilmed all over the world. It doesn't matter for what reason. And they microfilmed in Jewish communities and in general communities, and they got records which are applicable to the Jews. You can also say to the Holocaust in a smaller. But you have a very Anglo view here. Okay, you are not researching the Balkans and Eastern Europe so much on the ground, only from what's available in Washington. The question is, what is your willingness to go into new areas for the future?
All right, Monique, I'll answer this.
Okay.
So the question is not what is our willingness. The question really is, what is the willingness of the counterparty? So I have spoke to, not about specifically about the Bar-Ilan Documentation Center, but in my experience, so I've done work with the Russian State Archives, the Ukrainian State Archives. I've spoken to the Polish National Library. I have interacted with the Bundesarchiv as well, right? And the key thing, I've also at a long time ago once dealt with Yoram Mayork and talked about, the National Archives in Israel. We only work as effectively as the National Archives wants to work with us, or municipal archives, or any of those archives. And their willingness is not always so great. So once upon a time, we had an open hand with the Russian archives, under the kind of the Glasnost era. Now, under the Putin era, it would be impossible to work with those materials anymore. We even almost worked with materials at the secret archive. So it's really a lot less about us. If your question was how strong is our interest is relatively strong. There are some market issues that sometimes mitigate against. For example, when materials are not in English, the buying is the market is smaller. Although for certain kinds of materials, if it's not in English, the market will overcome that, depending on how important it is to the market. Holocaust-related materials, war crime-related materials can actually perform that function. But those materials can also be very, very closely guarded, with very little willingness on the part of the counterparty to want to work with us on this kind of thing. So we're interested, but are they interested? Sorry, Yitzhak, but
No, I understand.
I mean, I've even had this conversation with the U.S. Holocaust Museum, and they too can be quite protective. Yad Vashem, the same. You know, they have their own plans, they have their own desires, they have their own interests, they have their own philanthropists. I had conversations with the JDC about their materials. They had a philanthropist who took care of digitizing much of their materials. I think it's remarkable what they've done. It's all open access and free to use, and it's wonderful. I have issues with the quality of the platform that it's on, and whether it will move forward in time, since usually philanthropist money is one time only, whereas we have an obligation to keep updating the platform as scholars say to us, look, this is not as good as it used to be. I can't use it the way I need to. And we have to respond or they stop buying from us.
Also, I think, I remember once I was at the Wiener Library at Tel Aviv University, and we saw this, they have this exposition of the Strömer, I think is the name of the, it's like, yeah, it's this newspaper, this anti-Semitic newspaper. And we actually were talking together about digitizing it because it's very interesting content to have digitized. But in the end, Seth actually came, Bennett, and in the end, we couldn't, because we couldn't find the origin of like the original origin of the publisher or something. So for us, rights-wise, it wasn't possible to, even though the Wiener Library really wanted us to, and us too. So this is also something that sometimes makes it very hard, you know, who does it belong to? And then, yes, of course, yeah,
many stories to tell about that. We in case if there is any interest in this kind of thing, even though it makes us all uncomfortable, we also have been producing collections on extremist right-wing materials, mostly US and UK based. But there is a fair amount of Holocaust denialism amid those materials. It's all very chilling, but we kind of believe that this material needs to get out there so that scholars can kind of pick it apart.
Okay, does anyone else have a question? Yes, more, please.
Thank you for the wonderful information. And I have a question about the content. Do you have any materials in the Holocaust-related archives on art or images?
And your focus is on, as in the graphic arts, you know, like painting and things of that sort.
Visual arts, yeah.
The answer is probably not much, although, I mean, you're looking for visuals, I assume. Yes, you're looking for visual material, yes?
Yes, but not only photographs, but visual art, like painting.
Yeah.
Drawings.
Yeah, we don't have that much material. There's not that much, I mean, from the resources we can access, there's not that much available. There is a fair amount on the stealing of art. There's even material we have on the theft of art and other materials that we have not yet taken digital. It's a whole collection that was actually I acquired with a colleague from Lvov in Ukraine, because Alfred Rosenberg, of course, who was in charge of occupied territories, was stealing everything. And so for some reason, the Ukrainian State Archives in Lvov actually had a very large collection devoted to his theft. It was basically the list of everything he was stealing. And we actually went in on that collection with the Claims Commission. Now that is only in microfilm presently. We have not taken that digital yet. But again, I don't think it would have pictures. It wouldn't have any graphics in it. I think it would still be all textual. But it would have material that could be of interest to art historians who focus in particular on theft and looting. And they stole more than just art. They stole from books from libraries and things from, and you know, whatever they could get their hands on from people's homes. Oh, and not just Jews. Ukrainians too, and whoever else. It's pretty terrible stuff.
You know, they have in German projects in the libraries, when somebody found, the librarian found on the shelf book, which has ex-libris from a Jewish family, they try to found the family and to return back the book.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard from my colleague from Berlin.
Also, just returning a little bit to Yitzhak's question about the Berlin Documentation Center, because your question didn't get fully answered. I don't think it is I don't know if it is the most meaty or not. That's impossible for me to kind of answer. I do have more information about that collection, which I'm happy to send to you. It goes into more detail about what's in it. And there is much more BDC material still on microfilm that is untouched. But any materials that were not microfilmed, I have no idea if the Bundesarchiv would ever be open to working with that material. They certainly cannot object to the material at the National Archives. And that material can, and some of it has been digitized. I've actually worked with other materials from the captured war documents.
Okay, we have one more question in chat from Rachel. Is there any material in music, scores, recordings, texts, testimonies, etc.?
There is no audio material, as in material you would listen to, material that you would listen to. I do not believe there's any musical scores. There may be testimonies. I should actually also indicate that there was a photograph collection that we had on microfilm. It had been a project with Yad Vashem. Someone had actually inquired about it with us, and we double-checked. I double-checked Yad Vashem's kind of digital library, and they had actually taken it all digital already. So there are some collections we haven't done in these areas because they have been done by their host institution. So I think, and now there may be some testimony stuff, but I don't think there's a lot. Sometimes the testimonies are kind of embedded in files. For example, the World Jewish Relief files might have a little bit of that. But I should also be very, very clear. One of the things that I learned while doing this, while negotiating with World Jewish Relief, is World Jewish Relief, for example, has the case files of all of their refugees that they helped. And that material could include testimonial material. However, those materials are strictly private. They are fully protected, and there is no way we can, nor would we want to do them, since it would be a violation of privacy that would raise legal issues. And for us, it would actually raise reputational issues.
Thank you, Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other questions? Okay. Everybody are silent.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Olga, one thing I have that I've shown to Monique, and I can hand it to Sarit, is we have detailed descriptions of every one of the collections. Detailed means like a page to 2 or 3 pages describing the contents of the collections, and it will describe the kinds of documents and the topics covered, and even some background about it's a long document. You don't have, no one has to read it all, but you can just look at the things that interest you and read it. It is in English. There's actually one thing that's in French. The Dreyfus material is all in French for some reason. We have no English translation. And we actually have one of the descriptions is in English and German. I think it's the Wiener Library. Anyhow, that is available as a single document to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
What is it in the beginning? And you probably didn't understand because it was in Hebrew, is that I want to send, not today, but probably on Sunday, the list of digital archives available, and actually ask the members of the forum or anyone that participate to comment and to say if they have any need in terms of their research and also the priority, what is their priority? So
Yes.
we will have an idea of what comes first, what will come after, and so on.
Yes, this
I think
document
it's also,
will help.
yeah. I think it's also good just to have a trial, because then people can go in themselves and do their own search and maybe find stuff that they didn't think about and then realize, oh, this is actually really good for my research, you know, because I know that Bennett knows everything, but you know, you never know. Like people go from different corners into things as well. So we can do that.
Is it possible to open trials to every one of the archive that you presented today?
Yeah, you just let me know from which date and I will make it happen.
Okay.
How long is a trial, Monique?
Normally it's 1 month. So,
Well,
yeah. So it's important that everyone has time to
that you want to start the trial?
It would be very helpful to get the material in writing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Judy, we will forward to all the participants of this forum all the information we will get from Bennett and Monique.
We can share your PowerPoint as well, no, Bennett? Yeah.
Yeah.
I will send it over to you now, Sari, so people can look and slower and go into the names as well. Okay.
Do you have any preferred dates that you want to start the trial in? Mo, do you have an idea?
I think maybe we can
start now, or maybe.
I think we can discuss it later, not during this meeting, and we will just inform Monique and Bennett, and
okay,
cool.
We'll get some specific date. Okay.
Yes, because everyone's weekend started. Time to celebrate weekend. But I know, I have to wait one more day. Okay.
So
well, thanks very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. I think it was very impressive. And we will be in touch. Okay.
Yeah.
תודה רבה.
תודה.
Thank
Bye,
you very
everyone.
much.
Yeah.
Bye.
And Bennett,
thank you for arranging this.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning.
we just hit the afternoon. Erev Tov to everyone.
Time for lunch.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. Your first name is the last name of our new prime minister. So each time I tell Bennett.
Yes, I've been following.
I was wondering whether I should mention it or not, but
no, yes, we've followed this election very, very closely.
Oh, okay, so you know that.
I know too much.
Never a dull moment in Lilyfoot.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Bennett. Dank je wel, Monique.
Hey, good one. All right, goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you once again.
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens. Nice one as well. Tot ziens.
Ja.
Bye. Doeg.
Bye. Tot ziens.
תודה שרית.
מרים, מה שלומך? Long time no see. אני לא שמעת אותך, את במיוט, מרים. מרים? שמעת? לא, לא שמעת.